Atlanta never really sleeps. Sirens braid with traffic on I-85, a metallic hum under the apartment windows that keeps the air awake past midnight. Caleb Brooks stood at the kitchen sink, palms flat on the cool marble, watching the city glow in the reflection of a dark pane. He listened for another sound, the front door, the elevator, heels on hardwood. But the only heartbeat in the room was his. Jenna was with Melissa. That's what she'd said. Again. Girls' night. Wine and bad rom-coms, a couch full of blankets, laughter to chase off a rough week. He had smiled, because that's what a good husband does when his wife has plans. But the smile fell as soon as the door latched and the apartment swallowed the echo. There were too many of these nights lately. Too many convenient overlaps between Melissa's crises and Jenna's late meetings that bled into midnight. Keep watching. It only gets deeper. It hadn't always been like this. When they moved to Atlanta, everything felt bright and impossible. Jenna's new role at a tech consultancy in Midtown. Caleb's promotion at the logistics hub by Hartsfield-Jackson, where planes rose like silver gulls every minute. They found a place a few blocks from Piedmont Park, learned to love tiny coffee shops and long belt-line walks, and met Melissa and Ryan Hale at a neighborhood block party. The Hales were the sort of photogenic couple that drew people in and made everyone feel included. For a while, the four of them felt like a small, safe country in the middle of a loud, restless city. Ryan got Caleb into weekday hoops. Jenna and Melissa traded recipes and playlists. People said, it's rare to find friends like that. And Caleb knew they were right. The first hairline crack was so fine, he almost missed it. A joke Ryan made at a cookout landed a little too close to the bone, something about Jenna's second office being Melissa's living room. And there was a beat of silence before the laughter caught up. Then came the small rearrangements. Jenna angling her phone away as she typed, Melissa pausing before answering easy questions, Ryan skipping hoops with a wink about late paperwork. Nothing you could point to. Everything you could feel. Caleb told himself the city can make you paranoid. Atlanta moves faster than most marriages do. He remembered the chapel outside Macon, remembered Jenna's trembling yes, the drive north afterward with hot wind pouring through the windows. He clung to that memory the way you grip a steering wheel in a storm, knuckles white, eyes on the broken line. But the pattern hardened. Jenna's girls' nights matched too neatly with Ryan's habit of going quiet in the group chat. Melissa, once a fountain of commentary, went vague. She's just having a rough week, she'd say, then steer into weather or movies. When Caleb asked Jenna how the film ended, she blinked, searched for a character's name, and produced the wrong one. Fingerprints of another life began to surface. A hotel keycard sleeve, crushed in the pocket of a blazer Jenna rarely wore. A rideshare receipt that started in Buckhead and ended downtown near a boutique hotel. She said she'd grabbed Melissa from a friend's birthday. He swallowed the answer and nodded, because the alternative was to start a fight he didn't know how to finish. On a wet Thursday, rain ticking on the balcony rail like impatient fingers, Jenna texted that Melissa needed her again. She's in a bad place, Jenna wrote. Don't wait up. When she left, the apartment felt 20 degrees colder. Caleb walked the rooms like a watchman, turning lights off, then on, then off again, as if brightness could force the truth to speak. He tried a movie, but nothing reached his brain. He stepped onto the balcony and watched headlights smear along the curve of Peachtree, the city moving forward like a conveyor belt while his life idled in place. At 1:47 a.m., the elevator whirred. Keys, a soft curse, the careful click of a door. Jenna slid into bed with the smell of rain and a citrus hotel soap he didn't recognize. "Everything okay?" he asked the ceiling. "She'll be fine," Jenna whispered. Long night. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to be the man who could kiss his wife's forehead and let sleep do the mending. But beneath the city's constant hum, another sound throbbed. An old instinct that tells you when the ground looks solid, but isn't. He lay awake until morning, listening to Atlanta grind back to life. Garbage trucks, buses, the sharp whistle of brakes outside a bakery opening for the day. By 7, he had decided something he couldn't undecide. Guessing was slowly killing him. He would not stay blind to keep the picture pretty. Caleb reached for his phone, opened a browser, and typed 5 words he never thought he'd need. Private Investigator Atlanta Infidelity. When Caleb first met Ryan and Melissa Hale, it felt like a lucky accident. Atlanta was a big city, sprawling and loud, and yet somehow they had stumbled into neighbors who seemed cut from the same cloth. Ryan with his quick grin and easy charm, Melissa with her warmth and effortless way of making Jenna laugh. It didn't take long before the 4 of them were woven into each other's calendars. Double dates at rooftop bars, Saturday tailgates in fall, lazy Sundays sprawled around grills at Piedmont Park. Back then, Caleb thought this was what grown-up friendship was supposed to look like. 2 couples moving in sync, building parallel lives side by side. They joked about buying a vacation cabin together. Jenna and Melissa swapped outfits before dinners out. Caleb found himself thinking, "This is it. We're building our circle." The memories played like a reel in his mind now, bittersweet and cutting. He could still taste the smoky ribs Ryan swore by, hear Jenna and Melissa giggling like teenagers on the patio, remember the moment he looked around the table and thought, "We're safe here." It was the kind of illusion you didn't realize you were living inside until it cracked like glass. That night, after Jenna slipped into bed smelling like someone else's soap, Caleb couldn't sleep. By morning, he had already found 3 investigators' numbers and scheduled a call with the one whose voice carried a no-nonsense steadiness. His name was Samuel Green, former cop, now private investigator. "I'll need some details," Green said over the phone, his voice gravel rubbed smooth with age. "Where she goes, when, who she says she's with. The more routine you give me, the easier to track." Caleb hated the way the words tasted in his mouth as he recited Jenna's patterns. Tuesdays and Thursdays, working late, every other Friday, Melissa time. Occasional Saturdays, with excuses so thin they didn't even hold weight. Green didn't comment, just scribbled, and finally said, "Let me do my job. I'll call you if I see something you need to know." The days that followed were a blur of normalcy laced with poison. Jenna hummed while cooking, texted him midday with heart emojis, kissed his cheek before leaving for Melissa's. Caleb nodded, smiled, kissed back. But every time the elevator doors closed behind her, he knew Green was somewhere in the city, tailing her car, noting addresses, marking times. Meanwhile, old memories began replaying in sharper contrast. He recalled one summer night when they'd all rented a lake house north of the city. Sunburnt shoulders, coolers full of beer. Jenna perched on the dock while Ryan splashed the women from the water. Melissa had rolled her eyes at Ryan's antics. But later, when Jenna walked past him in her swimsuit, Ryan's gaze lingered a heartbeat too long. Caleb noticed, but brushed it off as the harmless attention men sometimes gave beautiful women. Now those same flashes gnawed at him. The way Melissa sometimes grew quiet when Jenna's phone buzzed. how Ryan always volunteered to help Jenna carry dishes inside, leaving Caleb and Melissa momentarily alone. Once, when Caleb came back from the restroom at a restaurant, Jenna and Ryan were laughing too hard, the kind of laugh you share when you're in on the same secret. He told himself then that he was imagining things. But the human brain is cruel. It stores these overlooked details like ammunition, waiting for the day they'll fire. One evening, Melissa texted Caleb to ask if he could drop by their place to pick up a serving dish Jenna had forgotten. When he arrived, Melissa stood at the door with a smile too bright, eyes darting like she was hiding a second conversation in her head. He tried to make small talk, but her responses felt clipped, cautious. When he mentioned Jenna, she changed the subject so fast it made his stomach twist. He left with the dish and a gnawing certainty. Melissa knew something. 3 days later, Green called. Caleb was in his office downtown, the hum of printers and phones a thin veil over his thoughts. "She's not with Melissa," Green said flatly. "She's with Ryan, Buckhead, hotel off Peachtree." The words landed like a fist to his chest. For a long moment, Caleb just gripped the phone. Through the window, he saw traffic inching along, people jaywalking with lattes, the city moving as if the world hadn't just tilted on its axis. His pulse hammered in his ears. He wanted to shout, demand proof, argue. But Green didn't traffic in suspicions. "You want me to keep eyes on them?" Green asked. Caleb's throat was dry. "Yes." When he hung up, the office walls felt like they were closing in. He pictured Jenna's laugh, the one she once saved for him, now echoing in a hotel hallway. He pictured Ryan's hand at her back. And somewhere in the city, Melissa was pretending her world was still whole, maybe choosing silence over the wreckage truth would bring. By the time Caleb drove home that night, Atlanta looked different. The neon lights of midtown bars felt sinister, the laughter spilling onto sidewalks sharp with irony. He parked, sat in the dark for a long while, gripping the wheel. The city moved around him, blind and indifferent. Inside, Jenna greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, warm as ever. "Melissa says hi," she murmured. Caleb stared at her, wondering how much longer he could breathe under this weight before it crushed him, or forced him to explode. Caleb had always thought of himself as steady, not the kind of man who chased shadows or let paranoia gnaw through his nights. But once Green's words carved themselves into his chest, "She's not with Melissa. She's with Ryan." Every ordinary moment took on a sinister edge. At breakfast, Jenna sipped coffee like nothing had shifted, humming to herself while scrolling her phone. Caleb watched her lips brush the rim of the mug and tried to picture where they had been hours before. His fork lay untouched on the plate, eggs growing cold. "You're quiet," Jenna said lightly, eyes still on her screen. "Just tired," he answered. The words felt like lies. But what else could he say? "I know you're slipping out of our bed to share another man's." He started noticing patterns he'd once dismissed. Jenna's laughter when a notification buzzed, the way she tilted her body slightly away as she typed. Perfume stronger on nights she claimed Melissa was going through something. A tiny bruise on her shoulder one morning, brushed off as bumping into the cabinet. Each clue was small enough to deny, but together they screamed a chorus. Green kept his reports simple. Texts came at odd hours. 11:24 p.m. She's not with Melissa. Same hotel, downtown. 7:15 p.m. with Ryan again. He booked the room. Confirmed. Each message landed like another brick on Caleb's chest. He scrolled through them late at night, thumbs shaking, eyes burning, reading until the words blurred. He deleted them from his phone, then felt sick for erasing the evidence, then sicker still for needing it at all. The double life began to take shape in his mind. Jenna, the doting wife who kissed him goodbye in the morning, who asked about his day, who laughed with him at reruns of The Office, was also Jenna, the woman slipping into a hotel room with Ryan, whispering promises she had once made only to him. Caleb felt as though he were living with two ghosts, the wife he had loved and the stranger who wore her face. Even Melissa's behavior became a puzzle. When they gathered for dinner, Melissa's eyes rarely met his. She fiddled with silverware, glanced at Jenna too quickly, smiled too tightly. Once, Caleb caught Ryan's handbrush against Jenna's under the table. It was just a second, a whisper of contact. But Melissa flinched as if burned. She knew. He was sure of it now. The city seemed complicit in his unraveling. Atlanta's bustle, once a comfort, now mocked him. Hotel chains lit up intersections like confessionals. Every passing cab, every office tower felt like a stage set for betrayal. He drove past Buckhead one afternoon and found himself staring at the hotel Green had mentioned. Its polished glass reflected the sun with blinding indifference. He pulled over, hands gripping the steering wheel until sweat pooled in his palms, imagining Jenna's laugh echoing inside. Sleep became a stranger. He lay awake listening to Jenna's breathing beside him, steady and calm, while his own heart pounded like a trapped bird. He wanted to shake her awake, demand the truth, rip the mask from her face. But each time, fear held him back, fear of what she might admit, fear of what it would mean to hear it aloud. Green finally called, instead of texting. "Mr. Brooks, you need to see this yourself. I can keep reporting, but until you witness it, you'll always question whether it's real." Caleb gripped the phone so hard his knuckles ached. His voice came out raw. "Where?" "Downtown Marriott, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. I'll be outside. If you want answers, come." The rest of the day moved in fragments. Meetings blurred, emails stacked unanswered. He sat through traffic like a man underwater, every honk muffled, every red light an eternity. That night, Jenna dressed with casual care, jeans, blouse, a touch of lipstick, and murmured about Melissa's rough week. She kissed him lightly, eyes soft. Caleb stared at her as she closed the door, wondering how she could look at him like that while carrying another man's touch on her skin. When the elevator dinged, he sat in silence, the apartment echoing with absence. On the table lay Green's business card. He turned it over and over in his hand, each edge cutting into his palm. By midnight, he had made his choice. He would go. He needed to. The truth was no longer a shadow to avoid. It was a blade hovering above his throat. The next evening, Atlanta pulsed with its usual chaos. Honking cars, flashing lights, sidewalks thick with strangers. Caleb parked a block away from the Marriott, heart slamming as if he were about to rob a bank. Green leaned against a sedan, arms folded, expression flat. "She's here," he said simply. Caleb swallowed, every nerve lit like fire. The hotel's glass doors slid open for a couple stepping out, their laughter trailing behind. Inside, Jenna was somewhere beyond those walls. So was Ryan. Caleb's fists clenched, and for the first time, he no longer wanted just suspicion or proof. He wanted confrontation. The lobby smelled of polished wood and perfume, the kind of scent meant to calm guests, to disguise what really went on behind the 100 identical doors above. Caleb moved through it like a man underwater, vision tunneling as he followed Green's steady stride toward the elevators. His heart thundered so loud, he thought the concierge might hear it. "Room 1014, Green murmured. "Checked in under Ryan Hale's name. Been here 2 hours. You still want to do this?" Caleb nodded, though his legs felt carved from stone. The elevator doors closed around them, mirrors reflecting his face back at him. Pale, jaw locked, eyes burning. He almost didn't recognize himself. When the doors slid open, the hallway stretched ahead in muted gold, carpet muffling every step. Green stopped near the end. "I'll hang back," he said quietly. "This is yours." Caleb swallowed hard. His hand trembled as he lifted it, fingers curling into a fist. He knocked once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed down the corridor like a gavel. Silence. Then footsteps. A pause. The metallic click of a chain sliding free. The door cracked, and Jenna's face appeared in the gap. Her hair was loose, her cheeks flushed, a silk strap slipping from her shoulder. For a fraction of a second, she smiled, expecting Ryan. Then her eyes widened, color draining, breath catching like she'd been punched. "Caleb," she whispered. The door swung wider. Behind her, Ryan stood half-dressed, shirt buttons open, belt dangling loose. His expression hardened into something between defiance and fear. The hallway tilted. Caleb's chest felt like it might cave in, but his voice came out steady, colder than he imagined possible. "So, this is where girls' night happens." Jenna scrambled, tugging the strap back into place, words tumbling. "It's not, Caleb, please, it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" His laugh was sharp, bitter. He pointed past her at Ryan, whose jaw clenched tight. "How many times have you used that line? Was Melissa in on this too? Or did you just feed her lies the same way you fed me?" Ryan stepped forward, hand raised as if to placate him. "Man, let's talk about this." "Talk?" Caleb snapped. "You've been in my home, at my table, around my family, and now you stand here half-naked with my wife." His fists shook at his sides, every muscle screaming for release. Jenna's eyes brimmed with tears, mascara smudging as she reached for him. "Caleb, listen, please. It was a mistake. It just happened." "A mistake?" His voice cracked, rage spilling through the cracks in his restraint. "You don't accidentally end up in a hotel room, Jenna. You don't do this for months and call it a mistake." He took a step closer, the air between them heavy as lead. "You chose this. Every lie, every kiss you gave me after him. Every night you walked out our door and said you were with Melissa." Ryan tried again. "It's complicated." Caleb rounded on him, fury blazing. "Don't you dare. You were my friend. We shared holidays, birthdays. My kids called you Uncle Ryan." His voice broke. "You burned all of it for this?" The corridor was silent except for Jenna's quiet sobs. Behind Caleb, the elevator dinged softly, doors opening and closing as strangers passed, oblivious to the war erupting 10 feet away. Jenna clutched at his arm. "We can fix this. I'll stop, I swear. Just don't end us here." He stared at her hand, the same hand that had slipped from his when she said her vows, the same hand he had held through sickness, through struggle, through every mundane day of their marriage. Now it felt foreign, poisoned. He pulled free, the motion sharp enough to make her stumble. "There is no us, Jenna," he said quietly, finality settling in his tone. "Not anymore." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Caleb turned, the weight of betrayal pressing against his ribs, but no longer holding him captive. Green's figure stood at the far end of the hall, arms crossed, waiting. Caleb walked toward him, each step a small victory over the paralysis of grief. Behind him, Jenna's voice cracked in the air. "Caleb, please." But he didn't turn back, not this time. By the time they reached the elevator, Green placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, son," he murmured. Caleb nodded, unable to form words. As the doors closed, the last image burned into his mind was Jenna framed in that hotel doorway, Ryan looming behind her, both caught in the merciless light of truth. The city outside still roared, traffic, sirens, laughter. But for Caleb, the noise had thinned into something hollow. He had thought he was ready for the truth. He hadn't been. Yet here it was, undeniable. And rage, sharper now, whispered that confrontation was only the beginning. The ride back to the apartment felt endless. Atlanta's skyline blurred past, neon lights streaking through the rain-speckled window. Caleb sat rigid in the passenger seat while Green drove in silence, the muted thrum of tires on wet asphalt filling the void. Every image replayed. Jenna's flushed face, Ryan behind her, the half-open door that revealed everything words could no longer disguise. When they pulled up, Green rested a hand on the wheel. "You don't owe her explanations, just the truth you've seen." Caleb nodded stiffly, thanked him, and stepped out. The air smelled of wet concrete and gasoline, sharp and heavy. Jenna was already there when he entered the apartment, perched on the couch as if waiting for a verdict. Her makeup was smeared, hair tangled, but her posture was rehearsed, shoulders squared, chin up, a woman ready to plead. "Caleb, please, don't." His voice cut through the room like broken glass. He dropped his keys onto the counter, the clatter echoing too loud. "I don't want excuses. I saw you. I saw him." Her eyes brimmed again, but the tears seemed strategic now, summoned like armor. "It wasn't supposed to happen. Ryan and I, we never meant..." "You never meant?" Caleb's laugh was bitter, jagged. "You meant it every time you lied. Every time you left me sitting here thinking you were helping Melissa through some crisis, when really you were creating one of your own." Jenna flinched. "It started small. Talking. He listened in ways you didn't anymore. And then..." "Don't you dare," Caleb snapped, stepping closer, rage boiling up. "Don't pin this on me. You had choices. You had vows. I worked my hands raw to keep this roof over us, and you..." His chest heaved. "You repaid me with hotel rooms and lies." For the first time, her mask cracked into anger. "You think you're blameless? You buried yourself in work, Caleb. You stopped seeing me. Ryan..." He noticed. The words hit like a slap, but instead of guilt, fire surged in him. "So you fixed neglect with betrayal? That's your justification? To crawl into my friend's bed, our friend's bed?" Silence pressed heavy between them, broken only by the city's muffled pulse outside. Caleb turned toward the shelf where framed photos lined up like ghosts. Vacations, anniversaries, their wedding day. He grabbed one. Jenna laughing in sunlight, arm looped through his, and hurled it against the wall. Glass shattered, raining across the hardwood. Jenna jumped, her sobs choking. "Please, don't do this." "It's already done." His voice shook, but the certainty in it was unmovable now. "I'll never trust you again." The door buzzer startled them both. Jenna froze. Caleb's stomach sank with recognition. When he opened the door, Melissa stood there, pale, clutching her coat around her. Behind her, Ryan lingered, looking like he'd aged 10 years in an hour. Melissa's eyes darted between them, shame etched deep. "I know," she whispered. "I know what you've been doing." Her voice cracked, but her glare at Ryan was sharp enough to cut. How long did you think you could keep me in the dark? Ryan's jaw tightened. Melissa, this isn't the place. No, she snapped. This is exactly the place. Tears spilled, but her words were steel. You've destroyed 2 marriages. For what? For hotel secrets and cheap thrills? She turned to Caleb, her face softening. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to believe it. Caleb's throat ached. He couldn't speak, couldn't look at her without feeling the fracture multiply. 2 families, shattered like the photo frame on the floor. Jenna tried again, voice desperate. We can all calm down. We don't have to. Melissa rounded on her. Don't you dare. You sat on my couch, drank my wine, smiled at me while sneaking around with my husband. You're not just a cheater, Jenna. You're a liar, a thief of trust. The room vibrated with tension. Every word another crack in what little remained unbroken. Ryan finally barked, Enough! What's done is done. But Caleb turned on him, fury boiling past restraint. No, Ryan. What's done has consequences. You've destroyed your wife, my marriage, everything we built. And you think you can shrug it off with a few words? Melissa's tears hardened into resolve. She pulled her ring from her finger and let it clatter onto the coffee table. We're finished, she said quietly. Then she turned and walked out, shoulders trembling but unbowed. Ryan hesitated, then followed, muttering curses under his breath. The door slammed, leaving silence thick as smoke. Jenna collapsed onto the couch, face buried in her hands. Caleb, please, she begged through sobs. Don't throw us away. He stood across the room, chest heaving, staring at the broken photo on the floor. You already did. The words hung final, heavier than any scream. Caleb turned away, moving toward the bedroom, needing distance before the walls themselves crushed him. Behind him, Jenna's sobs filled the space, but they no longer reached him. They were just noise, echoes in a life already dead. Jenna slept on the couch that night. A thin throw pulled to her chin, the city's glow washing her face in restless light. Caleb stared at the ceiling from the bed they had shared for years, listening to the small, ordinary sounds of a home that no longer felt like his. The ticking oven, the whisper of the HVAC, the distant wail of a siren bending around Midtown. By dawn, a quiet decision had settled in him like bedrock. He brewed coffee and waited at the kitchen table. When Jenna rose, she hovered in the doorway, as if a threshold had appeared. No one could cross without changing. I can explain, she tried again, voice rasped from crying. You already did, he said gently, and so did the door last night. Tears gathered. She stepped closer. Don't end us. We can go to counseling. I'll cut him off. I'll do whatever it takes. Caleb's hands wrapped around the warm mug. What it takes now is respect, for me and for the truth. He looked up, steady. You need to pack a bag. Go to your sister's. We'll sort the rest with a lawyer. She swayed as if bracing for a blow that didn't come. You're really doing this? I am. He swallowed. Because you already did. There was no shouting after that. Just drawers opening, the dull thud of a suitcase on the floor, hangers scraping the rod. When she paused at the door with her keys in her hand, he felt, for a fleeting second, the ache of what they once were. A younger pair who thought promises could carry any load. Then the elevator chimed, and the moment passed. The hours that followed were strangely practical. He called an attorney recommended by a co-worker and heard the words separation, equitable division, disclosure. He took photos of the apartment, the car, the ring, made a list of accounts, forwarded Green's invoice to his private email. He called his parents and said only what he had to. His mother cried softly and said she would pray. His father was quiet for a long time and then said, "Son, you did right to stand up." Melissa texted mid-afternoon, "I filed too. I'm sorry for everything you've had to see." He stared at the screen, typing and erasing, before finally sending, "I'm sorry for you too. None of us deserve this." That evening, he gathered their frames from the shelf. The wedding by the chapel outside Macon, the beach, the first Atlanta Christmas, and laid the photos face down in a drawer. Not to erase them, to release them. He kept one picture on the mantel. His grandparents, hands joined at a picnic table, faces lined and clear. Two people who had weathered storms the old way, together or not at all, but never by pretending the weather wasn't real. Days slid into a new pattern. He slept, fitfully at first, then more deeply. He met with the lawyer, printed statements, signed forms that reduced a history to inches of paper. He stopped answering Ryan's buzzing, brittle calls. He answered Green's final text. "You've got what you need." With a simple "thank you." He blocked Jenna's number for a week, then unblocked it to exchange logistics, a storage unit, the dog's vet records, a calendar for dividing furniture. She asked once, "Is there any hope?" And he told the truth. For forgiveness someday, maybe. For us, no. On a warm Saturday, he walked the Beltline alone. The city felt different in daylight, less like a machine grinding and more like 1,000 small lives moving forward in honest motion. Runners pacing, a kid on a scooter, a street musician folding a song into the breeze. Caleb bought a coffee and sat near the park, the cup warm in his palms, the air carrying cut grass and charcoal from someone's early grill. He tried to name the feelings sitting beside the grief. Not relief, something steadier. Dignity, perhaps. He hadn't saved his marriage. He had saved himself inside it. There was a cost to that, and he would pay it without self-pity. He had learned that love without truth is a costume, and a home without trust is just square footage. Weeks later, the papers arrived. He signed where the flags marked, placed the envelope on the hallway table for pickup, and stood a long time looking out over the city. He thought of the first night in Atlanta when everything seemed possible, and he let himself feel the loss cleanly, without flinching. Then he called a friend from work, one who had quietly asked twice how he was really doing, and accepted an invitation to a Braves game. Not to fill a silence with noise, but to let a little ordinary life in. Before he left, he opened the drawer and took out the broken wedding frame he hadn't thrown away. He removed the glass and ran a cloth over the photo, smoothing a crease that had formed at the edge. He placed it back in the drawer, closed it gently, and turned out the light. Outside, Atlanta pulsed the way it always had. Taxis and laughter, doors opening and closing, nights that held both mischief and mercy. Caleb locked the apartment and took the stairs, choosing the slower path down, each step a small, honest thing. If you've made it this far, thank you for spending this time. Stories like this aren't easy, but they matter, because truth and loyalty still matter. If this spoke to you, a simple like and a subscription help these quiet, human stories find the people who might need them today. Be well, and hold fast to what's true.